They believed their neighbors were sacrificing children to Satan. It wasn't a fringe belief. In the 1980s, across America, a chilling conviction spread like wildfire. An insidious network of satanic cults was operating in plain sight, preying on the innocent, performing ritual abuse, and engaging in horrifying acts of violence. This wasn't a phenomenon confined to hushed whispers or late-night talk shows. It permeated local news, police departments, and even courtrooms, leading to real accusations, real investigations, and devastating, life-altering consequences for countless individuals. But what fueled this moral panic? How did such an extreme, seemingly unbelievable narrative take root in the national consciousness? And what was the true cost of America's fear of Satan? To understand the satanic panic, we need to rewind to the late 1970s and early 80s. The social fabric was already strained. There was a rising concern over child abuse, a growing distrust of institutions, and a burgeoning self-help movement often blending psychology with spiritualism. It was into this fertile ground that Michelle Remembers was planted. Published in 1980, this book by psychiatrist Lawrence Pazder and his patient, Michelle Smith, claimed to recount Smith's repressed memories of being ritually abused by a satanic cult as a child. The book was a sensation. It detailed graphic, horrifying acts supposedly committed by masked figures in rituals spanning years. It gave concrete form to an amorphous fear, providing a narrative framework for what many were beginning to suspect. Suddenly, the abstract fear of evil had a face, a name, and a modus operandi. This wasn't just about troubled individuals. It was about an organized, clandestine network operating beneath the veneer of suburban normalcy. The media, ever eager for a compelling story, amplified these narratives. Talk shows, documentaries, and news segments frequently featured alleged survivors and experts on satanic cults, often without critical scrutiny. This media frenzy created a feedback loop. The more the topic was discussed, the more credible it seemed. People began to see patterns where none existed, interpreting unrelated events through the lens of satanic conspiracy. One of the most devastating manifestations of the panic occurred in daycares. In 1983, the McMartin Preschool in Manhattan Beach, California, became the center of a monumental child abuse scandal. Allegations emerged of satanic ritual abuse, animal sacrifice, and bizarre rituals involving children. The case spiraled, becoming the longest and most expensive criminal trial in U.S. history, lasting 7 years and costing millions. The details were sensational. Underground tunnels, flying on broomsticks, forcing children to participate in unspeakable acts. These claims, often elicited through suggestive questioning of young children, painted a terrifying picture. Despite a massive investigation and extensive testimony, virtually no credible evidence was found to support the claims of ritual abuse. All 7 defendants were eventually acquitted, but their lives, and the lives of the children and their families, were irrevocably shattered. The McMartin case wasn't an isolated incident. Across the country, similar accusations surfaced, leading to arrests, trials, and convictions that were later overturned as the hysteria subsided and prosecutorial misconduct came to light. One key factor fueling the panic was the rise of recovered memory therapy. Therapists, often untrained in forensic interviewing, would use techniques like hypnosis and guided imagery to help patients recall traumatic events. The problem? These techniques were highly susceptible to suggestion, leading to the creation of false memories. Patients, often vulnerable and seeking answers, could inadvertently remember events that never happened, particularly if a therapist believed in satanic ritual abuse. Another powerful influence was the burgeoning Christian fundamentalist movement. For some, the idea of a literal Satan and a pervasive evil cult aligned with their theological worldview, framing contemporary social problems as spiritual warfare. Heavy metal music, role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, and even certain cartoons were demonized as gateways to Satanism, further stoking public fear and creating a moral panic around youth culture. The consequences were profound. Families were torn apart, reputations destroyed, and lives irrevocably altered. The very real problem of child abuse was overshadowed and distorted by fantastical accusations, making it harder to address genuine harm. By the late 1990s, the tide began to turn. Skepticism grew, fueled by a lack of credible evidence, expert critiques of recovered memory therapy, and the failure of high-profile cases to yield convictions. Psychological associations issued warnings about recovered memory therapy, and legal systems began to scrutinize the methods used to elicit testimony in child abuse cases more rigorously. The panic, while not entirely gone, receded from mainstream consciousness. The Satanic panic serves as a stark reminder of how easily fear and misinformation can spread, even in an age of relatively limited digital communication. It shows the devastating power of collective delusion and the importance of critical thinking. It also highlights the vulnerabilities of our legal and social systems when confronted with emotionally charged accusations, particularly those involving children, where the desire to protect the innocent can sometimes override the pursuit of objective truth. While the explicit fear of satanic cults has largely subsided, the underlying patterns of moral panics, conspiracy theories, and the weaponization of fear continue to resurface in new forms, reminding us that vigilance against uncritical belief remains essential. Explore the next time society lost its grip on reality by watching our video on the Salem witch trial.